Hello everybody and welcome back to the Silicon Nubian YouTube channel. Today I'm going to have a look at a Linux distribution that I liked very much. In fact, I used to run this for over a year on actual hardware. This is the Solid. There are two versions, SolydX and SolydK. SolydX using XFCE as the user GUI and SolydK using KDE as the user GUI. Today we're going to take a look at the latest release of SolydX, and a little background. SolydX is a Debian-based distribution with XFCE and KDE desktops respectively. SolydX aims to be simple to use, providing an environment that is both stable and secure. SolydXK is an open source alternative for small business, nonprofit organizations, and home users. The project started as an unofficial variant of Linux Mint Debian Edition, if you remember that, with KDE as the default desktop, but it has later given its own identity as SolydK. SolydX was added after Linux Mint dropped its Debian-based flavor that used the XFCE desktop. We have the SolydX variant, once again, using XFCE as the desktop. SolydX now is absolutely based on Debian stable, but as you'll see as we get into it, it gives you the option to use backports and I guess more up-to-date software at the potential risk of instability, but I found that it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So here we have post-installation. We have the login screen, very simple, very nice. So we're going to get into the system and start to kick the tires. We're greeted with a welcome screen, which is very interesting. If you read the screen carefully, first, it talks about donations and what kind of software, what it's built on, and support options and whatnot. As you move forward through it, you'll notice you'll come to this, the first of a few pages that makes things very interesting for the user, and I like this a lot. Let me read this quickly. SolydXK comes with a wide variety of drivers pre-installed. For most purposes, these drivers suffice, but in some cases, better performance is provided by proprietary drivers. So currently, NVIDIA, ATI, and Broadcom drivers can be installed. This is called DDM. This is the software that's going to do it for you. Also allows to install the PE kernel for multi-core 32-bit systems. So this is presented right after installation and boot up. And if I click on this button here, install, it will actually download and install the necessary drivers for my hardware, the proprietary drivers, as opposed to the included open source drivers. So let's continue. I don't really need to do that for the sake of this review. Multimedia codecs, Flash. It says here, these multimedia codecs are not included by default for legal and security reasons. Flash, CSS. Most commercial DVDs are encrypted with CSS, Content Scramble System. So being able to play DVDs here, one click, and you have both of these installed and ready to go. Let's move on. LibreOffice backports. By default, SolydXK does come with LibreOffice. Not necessarily the latest, greatest version due to it being based on Debian stable, which, as we all know, or most of us know, is somewhat conservative in the versions that are available from those repositories. So here it allows you to install the fully up-to-date and keep it at the latest version of LibreOffice. This I would probably do. So it says, although you can run more up-to-date software using backports repository, you introduce the greater risk of breakage in doing so. I personally have never had an issue running the latest version of LibreOffice, and I would consider this, if this was a full install, I would definitely go ahead and click on this. Not only will it download and install LibreOffice, the latest, greatest version, from the backports repository, it will also keep it up to date whenever there's a new version that comes out. Let's continue. Business applications, GNU Cache, you all know what that is, Dolly Bar, CRM for modern, easy-to-use web software to manage your business contacts, invoices, products, stocks, agenda, emailing. That's interesting. I could use that. Leto DMS, open source web-based document management system, and Project Libre. Project Libre is a project management software. So if you're using this in an office environment, you can easily just click install and it will get all of these applications for you. I have to tell you that you can always do this manually by going into the software center and going and getting these applications if you so wish. But I want to give kudos to the developers of SolydXK for having this at the beginning so you can get up and running a lot quicker dependent on what your use of the system will be. So I give them kudos for that. Next, we have home applications: GIMP, Inkscape, Shotwell, Digicam, Clementine, Amarok, all of these, and Handbrake, Sound Converter, PTV, this is like a video editor, Transmission, of course, the torrent downloader software. Once again, one click of the button and all of these will be installed. If I was to give a negative comment, there's no granularity in this. The install will install all the apps you see on the page. You can't pick and choose. It'll just install all of them. So depending, I find that their choices, though, to counter the negative aspect of this, I find that the choices that they've given are very logical and something I'd probably do by myself anyways. We go next, system applications: Gparted, VirtualBox, FileZilla. Again, gives you the option at startup, do you want to install these now instead of going out and doing that later. Games: Steam, Mindtest, OAD, I'm not familiar, so it looks like a real-time strategy game. Battle of Wesnoth, which is very well known in Linux corners and open source corners, and a few others. So here we have, again, depending on how you want to use your system. Are you an Office user? You can go back and with this welcome screen, you can install most of your necessary Office apps. Do you want to use it for casual surfing and gaming? Well, you can go back and install Flash and whatever if you want, and come to this page and install Steam and get everything up to date right away. Play on Linux if you want to play games on Linux software, Windows-based games, for example. By using this software, you may make your system vulnerable to MS Windows viruses and malware, blah, blah, blah. So it gives you a little blurb on this, but at least it allows you. So that's the end of it. I really like this. They walk the fine line between giving too much and giving just the right amount. Again, the only negativity is the granularity. You have to select whatever, if you go install, whatever's on that whole page gets installed. But otherwise, I think this is fantastic. So let's dig a little deeper into the system. It's a very clean desktop. Once again, I have to point out that I did run SolydXK for about a year and loved it quite a bit. Being based on Debian stable, there's no such thing as versions per se. It is a rolling release. So that's another good thing about it. On my main system now, I'm running Manjaro for 2 years now, and it's been fine and solid. And SolydXK was great as well. I think the only reason I got rid of it was I changed my system and I just wanted to try something else. Here we have an update manager telling us that we have updates available. I remember one time this used to be considered taboo in the Linux world to a point for certain applications, certain distributions, but now it's in my opinion, it's a welcome addition. So all we see is that the USB creator is available. Current version installed is 0.2.8, and we'll go up to 0.3.1. We won't do that now. Good to know that it's there. Very simple taskbar. At the bottom, we have sound, properties. We can run the audio mixer from here. We have battery, of course, showing our network connectivity, edit connections and whatnot, connection information, and we have a clip manager. I do not understand in the Windows world why that's not included by default. Anyways, I digress. Right-clicking anywhere on the desktop brings up the typical list of options. Create a launcher, create from template, open terminal here. I don't see anything that is interesting. Oh, create Samba share. You don't see that all the time. Arrange desktop icons, properties, desktop settings. Desktop settings, we have, of course, the usual for wallpaper, how it's presented, whether it's stretched, tiled, whatever. Menus, icons, size of the icons that would be on the desktop. The default installation that I did, it's not there, but I can easily add, as you can see, home icon, file system, trash, and removable devices, and I can easily change the actual icons themselves in themes. So that's one thing to remember. At the bottom here, of course, we have the show all windows, hide all windows button. We also have the file manager. Well, by default, this ships with Thunar 1.6.3, one of the better file managers and more prevalent ones in the Linux world. So that's what you get. Let's go dig a little deeper into what's installed by default. We saw what you could potentially install if you want, but let's see what it ships with. We have Firefox ESR, which I've noticed on a few distributions now as the go-to browser to be included. On a side note, in terms of performance, now I'm running this in a virtual machine, but after having come off of a review just a few days ago of, I believe it was MX Linux, I can tell you that SolydX does perform very well. Not as well as MX Linux, but MX Linux is lean, like maximum lean. But it performs very well, and on newer hardware with an SSD drive, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two anyways. SolydX variant, as opposed to the SolidK, which uses KDE, and this one using XFCE, this one runs quite lean, actually. It's, from what I'm seeing, performance is quite good. And I remember using it on real hardware, and it ran fantastically. So here we have Firefox rendering pages as it should. A little volume control just came up there. Okay. So these are the favorites. We have Mozilla Thunderbird, which is a fantastic mail program or a newsreader, depending on what you want to use it for. LibreOffice, Software Manager, we'll get into that. Settings Manager, we'll also get into that. Terminal Emulator, of course. Let's dig a little deeper here. So I've recently used all, let's go into Settings. Most of these, or if not all of them, will appear in the Settings Manager. There's a few extras that you might not see in other distributions, but for coming from the Ubuntu /Linux Mint distribution, you will notice things such as Device Driver Manager. If you have, for example, NVIDIA card as your video card, or an AMD, other software for certain NICs and network cards and whatnot, depending on the chipset that's used, you can use this to search out to find those devices and then to download and automatically install the proprietary drivers in place of the included or potentially not included open source drivers. Device Driver Manager helps you to install proprietary drivers for your hardware. Only install proprietary drivers if you're sure you really need them. Usually open drivers are enough, which is true. Do not find any supported hardware because this is being run in a virtual machine. But you can see how useful that can be. I can tell you that I haven't run this distribution in probably around 2 years, and I'm finding it very attractive right now. Okay, let's continue. So we have that in Settings, Accessibility, Appearance, of course, File Manager, MIME, OpenJDK, Power Manager, Panel, Preferred Applications. We're going to see all that once again. Manage System D units, Update Manager, USB Creator. I noticed something like that's been included in a lot of lately. I don't see a tool, and maybe I'm wrong, that was in MX Linux where you can actually create a bootable live DVD of your running system with all the updates and changes you've made. But I think SolydXK is aimed at in a slightly different way than MX Linux. So I wouldn't call that a negative. In accessories, we have, of course, antivirus, CLAM, GTK hash, lucky backup, great to have. Passwords and keys, so we have a password manager. Always good to have, in particular these days where the average amount of passwords that people have is quite significant, and the potential for loss due to forgetting them is even greater. And we have a lot of things. Okay, accessories. Sorry, we're in there. Which XFBurn is the CV DVD burning software. Graphics, we have Document Viewer, LibreOffice Draw, Image Viewer. Remember, we could have installed GIMP, Shotwell, Digicam, and all those other programs with just a click of a button. I would have probably done that at the start, unless you want the fine-grained control of exactly what goes into your system. And I'll show you how SolydXK will allow you to do that. Internet, we have Firefox web browser, Mozilla Thunderbird, mail and newsreader, Remina, which I'm not familiar with, connect to remote desktops, and VNC server to share the desktop. Okay, continue. Office, we have the full LibreOffice suite. We have a document viewer, which I suppose will do PDFs as well, Orange Calendar, and Orange Global Time. I'm always happy to see that LibreOffice is included, the full suite on any install, in that one of the big things that I look for is how productive can I be almost immediately post-install. And so far, SolydX is scoring 10 out of 10 right now. System, disk usage analyzer, package manager, of course, printer settings, everything you expect to see is here. So let's go back a little bit and look at the settings manager. Typical of what I've seen in many XFCE distributions, the settings manager has all you need to change settings for the system. It has some additions, for example, device driver manager, which we've gone through before. But I find that Linux these days, there's very little need to drop to a command line unless you're doing something really unusual. I don't find there's much need to drop to the command line anymore. Setting up a Samba share and whatnot, session and startup, of course. That's interesting right there. So let's go to the software manager. How do I get software on this system? There's two ways to go. Okay? There's the old school way, where we run Synaptic Package Manager. Okay, that gives you a little blurb that everything's located in packages. Okay, anybody who's used a lot of Linux distributions, especially those that are Debian-based, knows about Synaptic. Okay, pretty much one of the granddaddies of all package managers. Everything's categorized over here. You have the software here. You have a little blurb about it. Not the most user-friendly, but very powerful in what it can do. Okay, now let's see what they've included to make things simpler. I've seen this particular software manager on some Ubuntu-based distributions, Elementary OS, I believe. I could be wrong. Basically, you have the categories here. It's nice and graphical, and you double-click on the software you're interested in, and you have a much bigger blurb. Reviews, tells you what it's good for, whatever, and you can always go back to sound and video, or choose another category. You have packages that are featured. I'll make this a little. I find that catching a corner is a little bit on the difficult side. For example, we have Firefox web browser. This is in the featured. You can tell over here what category you are in, and some reviews. It'll tell you that it's installed. This will install regular Firefox and delete Firefox ESR. But we'll keep Firefox ESR. Just for the sake of this video, Audacity, again, fantastic audio editor, cross-platform, have some reviews here. Not too much description on what's going on, what it is actually. Here we have GIMP. You see, we could have had GIMP installed with a lot of other programs. I believe it was Shotwell, Digicam, and a few others with a click of a button. But if you want that fine-grained control, you can go into the software manager and do it yourself. Also, you can also uninstall software this way. Okay, if it is installed, it'll say installed, and this will change to not uninstall, and you can easily remove the software. So that's pretty powerful. So again, let's have a little overview of what we've seen so far. Again, lock screen, switch users, log out. In a nutshell, I like SolydXK, and I like the SolydX variant. I'm sure I like the SolydK variant as well. I just find it to be a very well thought out, solid distribution based on Debian stable. You know you're going to get that stability in there. The developers have differentiated enough from other distributions to make it very attractive. I find it's very good looking, but with any distribution, it's easy for the user to change it the way that they want it. Performance is spot on for what it is for a desktop OS. I love the included startup where you can select what software packages or groups of software packages you can install, which go along with your intended use for the system. Office, for example, gaming, simple surfing, whatever, or a combination of a few. And I just love how it works. I give for SolydXK 2 thumbs up. And as with most Linux distributions, I urge everyone out there to go to DistroWatch or some other site. I prefer DistroWatch. Download the ISO, kick the tires, see if it looks good. And if you really want to get into Linux, this is one of the better ones that I would recommend. I would put this right up there with Linux Mint, to be honest with you, which is one of my go-to distributions when I'm introducing people to Linux. Linux Mint or OpenSuse. So I would say that this should be included in the same sentence as those two. That's how highly regarded how high regard this, and I do regard it very highly. A solid distribution, and 2 thumbs up. A definite must try. So that's it for this video. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. Tell more people about the channel. If there's something you want to see, I'd be happy to create a video about it. We do have some other videos coming up. One video I'm thinking of doing soon is a video showing home users how to lock down their wireless network on their brand new shiny router that they've purchased. And a few other videos as well. So take care, and hope you enjoyed looking at this video, and see you soon.